Woohoo! Welcome to Unexplained Reality, the podcast about the strange and unexplained but real. We like to hear about and talk about Bigfoot and the Sasquatch. We call them boogers. We also like to talk about dogmen, UFOs, aliens, ghostesses, and pretty much anything that is strange, weird, and unexplained. We'd love to hear from you if you've had an experience or an encounter. You can get us on the email at unexplained.reality@yahoo.com. We got the Facebook, the Instagram, the Twitter. Heck, we even got one of them YouTube channels. Yeah, and we got the PayPal, and we got the Patreon. Woo, come and get you some.
Good evening and stuff. This is Unexplained Reality, and we're the podcast about the strange, weird, unexplained, but real. I am one of your hosts, Brian Quinn, and with me is my son,
Harrison Quinn.
Just speak up, because...
Harrison Quinn.
What's wrong with your mouth? Just gotta... Okay, enough of that.
Welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back.
Yeah.
We're back at it. So, obviously you don't have anything to do if you're listening to us.
Or maybe you do. Maybe you're just listening to
maybe
us.
Maybe you live for us. Maybe you live to listen to us.
Be interesting, but
that'd be very
on,
sad.
On your commute to work or to school, or maybe even at school or work, listen to us. You know.
Yeah.
Maybe you've got time.
That's probably a little more reasonable, I would imagine. So, probably more logical than just living to listen to us. Anyways, hope everybody had a good week. We've had a okay week. It's been busy for me. And young Harrison started some new classes, so they're keeping him busy. He actually has to do stuff now.
Yeah.
So, it's like, oh my gosh, I actually have homework.
Yeah.
Every day I have to hear that.
Yeah.
Sounds just like
every
that
second of every day. That's
every second of every day. It's exactly. Even a text message he's sending it to me from school. Anyways, we also have our third host, Queso, Q-Dog, our infamous Chihuahua. He's walking around aimlessly. I believe he's worried about the subject matter we're going to speak of tonight. As usual, if anybody has an encounter or experience they would like to share, hit us up on unexplained.reality@yahoo.com or Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're on all that. Come follow us, like us, be our friends.
If you want to.
If you'd like. You could join our little group on Facebook. We might let you in. You might get a secret decoder ring.
Send it to you in the mail.
Yeah.
Standard rate supply.
Yes. Shipping and handling only. We need 3 box tops.
Yep.
3 box tops, and you pay shipping and handling.
Yep.
I don't really know where I'm going with this. We're just babbling tonight.
Yeah.
We'll get going here in a minute. You have anything going on you want to speak about?
Geometry. Boring.
Nobody wants to hear about that.
Yeah. Exactly.
We want to talk about Bigfoots,
okay.
ghostesses, UFOs, aliens, anything but geometry. Unless the geometry deals with like...
Actually, there is this guy on YouTube I've been watching recently a lot. I can't pronounce his name for the life of me. But I'll make sure you link him or something, in the description or whatever. But he makes really good videos. If I could pronounce his name,
What is it about? It depends on what it's about.
It's,
I mean,
it's,
if it's like
it's
basket
about,
weaving, it's
no,
not happening.
it's not about basket weaving. It's about like a lot of science stuff, a lot to do with like space and Earth and.
Nobody cares about science, man.
Okay, but it's Kurzgesagt. That's the best.
Yeah, you just butchered that poor man.
I sure did. Maybe you can pronounce it.
Maybe he's from Kazakhstan.
He's German, I'm pretty sure.
Kurzgesagt. That means something. He asks something.
That would make sense.
In German,
he's like
I don't know what
literally
Kurz is, but
philosopher.
Gesagt is like, I asked yesterday. Ich habe eine Question geacht.
Okay. He's kind of like a philosopher almost, but
I'm a philosopher.
Okay. He talks about a lot about space, and he's just really interesting. Go check him out if you want.
I don't know anything about him, so I can't say anything. So you're on your own if you're taking Harrison's advice.
You should watch his videos. He does videos a lot. He said it takes over 200 hours to make one of his videos, but he's been making videos a lot more recently.
Jesus.
Yeah.
What's the guy do for a living? Just make videos for
videos.
YouTube?
He's got a big channel. He's got 1 million or.
Okay, so that's what he does for a living.
Yeah, he's got 5.5 million subscribers. So he makes a good chunk of money, and he makes like educational videos. So he gets.
Oh my gosh.
He doesn't get demonetized or anything. So he's
paying off them student loans.
I'm sure he is.
Yes.
Yeah, making tons of money.
Yep.
Millions of views per video. He makes really good content too. I suggest you guys check him out.
You get a little closer to the microphone there, Chief. You're gonna be out the door. And in
So
another
sorry.
room. You get up closer, or I can hear you.
Might as well be at the bottom of our pool.
Yeah. It'd be really cold right now.
Yeah.
All right. So, anyways, we're battling. Okay, so we'll try to put if I can remember to do, I'll put a link out there for young Harrison's philosopher buddy, German philosopher on YouTube. But all right, if you don't have nothing else, we'll just get into some stuff here. I got a couple things from Phantoms and Monsters, and I think one thing from Cryptozoology News, and then we'll jump into our subject matter for the evening. This first one is, the first couple are about Slender Man. I don't know, I thought that was just something made up, but apparently there
was a story, 2012 I think it was, about two girls who went into a forest and claimed they saw, one of them came back out and claimed they saw Slenderman, but one of the girls didn't come out because she'd been murdered, and they assumed it was by the other girl, but there was no compelling evidence. So from what I've heard, there was no compelling evidence that the one girl killed the other, but she told a story about there was this entity that was extremely tall and lanky and dressed in a black suit with a white mask over its face, not necessarily like a Jason mask, but like if you go to Party City, you get one of the full like body spandex things, the completely
right
covering body thing, kind of like that, and he had like tendrils coming out of his back and all kinds of crazy stuff. But
could you explain what tendrils are for us?
Gosh, like long tentacles without
suction tentacles.
Cups. Yeah, but long appendages coming out of his back. But I mean, of course, the police aren't going to say, "Oh yeah, they went in and this entity killed the girl." So
didn't they convict that girl?
Yeah, they convicted her of one charge of murder.
And she got sentenced yesterday, wasn't it, or something? Just recently, like 40 years.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, it was something crazy. I don't know a lot about that story, so this article isn't about it, but this one's from Zach in Texas. Like it says on phantomsandmonsters.com. And he says, I got a story from many years ago. I was a kid. I was in middle school when this happened. There's a big patch of woods behind my house. I knew every inch of this place. I was out there all the time. One evening, something went down. I was out there as I usually was, but something kind of threw me off that day. I was looking around and I saw off a ways in the woods there was this figure out there. It was impossibly tall, dark figure, basically featureless. I didn't realize until many years later that it was actually Slender Man that I had seen that day. Seeing him standing there staring at him for a few seconds, something just told me to run. And I was at the far end. It's about a 4 mile long patch of woods. That's a lot to run. 4 miles in woods?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Plus, you've got the uneven terrain with
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, if you're
and stuff.
4 miles on a road would kill me. I can't imagine 4 miles through the woods. That Slender Man just had to eat me. He wouldn't be slender no more either, would he?
For longer.
Got me a turkey. I can make the other side in about 7 minutes, and no matter how fast I ran, every time I looked back, he was in the same spot behind me, like the same distance. It wasn't until I made it to the other side, I was about halfway down the bayou that was there. I turned around and he was just standing there, stopped. He wouldn't go any further. To this day, that's about the most shaken up I've ever been. Ever since I went out there, I never saw him again. But that one time being out there, it was just the weirdest thing I've ever experienced. It was pretty spooky, and years later, actually, I started hearing about the Slender Man stuff on the internet, and I started putting two and two together. It was like, oh man, I saw this guy when I was like 12. That's pretty freaky stuff. That's pretty freaky. You know, normally I would not give this, I don't know, the Slender Man thing I've always thought is just nothing to it.
Yeah.
But
the second teen in Slenderman case to remain in institutional care for 40 years, a Wisconsin judge has sentenced the second of two teenage girls accused in the 2014 attempted homicide of their friend by stabbing her in the woods to please the fictional character Slenderman.
Yeah.
She's 15 years old, so man, that's
Yeah.
heavy. She'll get out of institutional care when she's 55
that's crazy.
if she lives that long, you know. People may not.
But like I said, I don't know that I believe this Slender Man stuff.
I don't.
I don't believe it. But I will say a lot of people are seeing some crazy stuff. I mean, I'm hearing a lot of stuff about the rake and these. I mean, where people seem to be really seeing something, and it's all over the board. It's not just. I mean, you're seeing a lot of people seeing dogmen supposedly. A lot of people are seeing Sasquatch, which I think Sasquatch is a flesh and blood animal, But some of the stuff people are seeing out there are just, man, it creeps me out. Like the video, did you see the video of the guy videoed his house? He said this thing kept coming to his house. And finally he set up like an iPad or something and videoed it. And this thing comes out of the woods and it's like, it's walking bipedal. It looks like a man that's completely naked.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And it's like pale looking and it's acting all crazy. Like his arms are moving. Man, if I saw that, I'd either
in the Empire State Building
die of a heart attack, or if I had a weapon, that thing would be Swiss cheese, Jack. Unload everything into it. We'll figure it out after he's dead.
Yeah.
Oh, that was Bob from next door. He was just drunk.
Completely naked and
Sorry, Wilma. I killed Bob
pale
because
white.
he got the drunk up on the Coors Light again and was staggering through the woods naked.
Dislocated both of his shoulders and elbows and was just swinging his arms around.
And I didn't realize he was saying, "Danger, danger, Will Robinson." I shot him. Killed him.
18 times.
I hit him 3 times
I had
with a 12 gauge,
Sir, it says
before he
that
hit the ground.
you shot this man 18 times. Sure did. But you shot him with a 6-shooter revolver. Sure did. Reloaded.
It's called speed loader. Wow. Yeah, I don't know, man. That freaks me out. If there's another one here. It says, so basically I was laying in bed and I distinctly remember being awake because I could hear noises in the house. So I think I was more like half awake, half asleep. That's pretty much my whole night. Half awake, half asleep. Kind of the state you're in when you have sleep paralysis. Stuff like that. But the thing is, I wasn't experiencing sleep paralysis because I could move around in bed. But I was still very out of it because I was so exhausted. So basically I was laying there. My eyes were closed, obviously, and then all of a sudden in my head, I got the most clear, extremely vivid image of me standing in the window of the house I was at. And I was standing facing the window. It was on the second floor of the room that I was in, and I was looking out of the window. And the room that I was in, the window faces the backyard. The backyard isn't anything special. It was some trees surrounding the property so you can't see into the neighbor's yard. It's pretty tall trees and then pretty much an empty yard and a little deck below that. You can't really see just because it's like straight down, right? And so I was standing there and I was half experiencing it and half seeing myself experience it. That's pretty wild. And I was looking out this window, and at the very end of the property, there was, it wasn't that far away. I saw a really tall man wearing what looked like a black suit with no facial features, long limbs, and it was weird because it was like a really, really pale face. No features, but I could tell it was looking at me, and I was standing there like frozen, absolutely terrified. So that's like what you were talking about. Like, she claimed that it had no features. It had like a little white bodysuit thing on.
Yeah.
Like, who is this? What does he want? Why the strange face? All these things were going through my head, but at the same time, it was almost like standing in the room watching myself watch him, but I could still see him. It was very bizarre, and that whole thing felt like it stretched out for a long time because I was so scared, and obviously things feel a lot more drawn out when you're freaked out. All of a sudden it ended and I was jerked back into my body. And this is the freakiest part, that we have a chihuahua playing with a baby right under our feet while we're trying to do this.
Being as loud as he can be, growling and flipping his baby around, and just
he demands attention. He will not take.
We need to just have a little spot on our desk where he can sit right in front of the microphone, and he just be there. And
when we get our,
do you agree, Cass? I'm going,
yeah, or it'll be a.
Yeah, that'll be even worse because you'll hear him licking for an hour.
So, we're probably gonna get. Yeah, we got to make sure when we get our mixer, we get him a microphone too.
Absolutely.
And put it right over his little bed. You can sit there and we'll hear him snoring. Then he'll be quiet when he has his own microphone. Anyway, so it says, all of a sudden it ended and I was jerked back into my body, and this is the freakiest part. This is why I'm categorizing this as paranormal experience, because I was so freaked out. I opened my eyes and I went to sit up. I started sitting up in bed, and as soon as I was upright, in real life, this isn't a dream. This isn't a vision anymore. In real life, I was sitting on my bed. All the lights were off in the room. There was a little moonlight coming through the window, which was on the right-hand side of the bed on the wall. My eyes were open, and I looked, and right beside my bed, I looked, it looked like he was wearing a suit. He had long arms. Was a very tall man, a very, very tall man standing in my room, but right beside my bed. It looked like he was wearing a suit. He had long arms, long legs, and no hood or anything like that. It was just his face, but there was no face. It was like no eyes, no nothing. And he was like this far away from me, right? Holds up hands, indicates 7 to 8 inches. Like so close to my bed, and I kind of like jerked because I was so freaked out. I went to like jump out of the bed and run to hit the light, and basically the bed is like, it's pretty small. I mean, there's no bed frame or anything that would stop me from just diving off the bed. So my bed was here, and I was standing to the right of me in the bed. And so I saw him and freaked out, then looked away, and then went to run to the light switch. And as soon as I got out of the bed and I glanced behind me, as I moved towards the light switch, there was nobody there. It was like, okay, Bri, I don't know, you were seeing things. What's going on? And then I turned the light on for a second, took a moment to calm down because I was obviously like, what's going on? And then it was like, what the hell did I just see? Yeah, I would be the same way.
Yeah.
I'd be freaked out. I'd probably be screaming like a girl.
Yeah, in the game, I don't know, there's a lot of similarities to the game Slender Man, because Slender Man was a game, and then the 3 girls went out into the woods and murdered the other girl by stabbing her, but they claimed it was for Slender Man, but the game Slender Man had already come out, so it wasn't like they had were like, oh, there's this thing in the woods, and then they base the game off of that.
Right.
But in the game, I've seen people play it like a long time ago, but I remember if he pops up somewhere near you, if you look at him, your screen starts to like cover with static.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't look away from him, like immediately, your screen will fill with static, and then it'll stop, and then he'll just pop up like right in your screen and scare you. It's a horror game. So that, I mean, she was like, don't look at him, and then she like turned her head immediately, which kind of reminded me of the game, you know, Slender Man, and
right.
she was just trying not to look at him. I don't know. It just seemed a lot like the characteristics of actual Slender Man in the game Slender Man, and kind of the mechanics of it. I don't know.
That's crazy. That's creepy. I wouldn't want to run into anything like that if it's legit. I mean, obviously he that person believes, you know, he saw what he saw. I mean, nobody can explain it. Plenty of people see plenty of things that you can't explain. I mean, it happens all the time, and that's what I'm saying. It's so weird now that people are seeing. Well, we heard the thing last week about the news story about the priest, where it was in Ireland, that's requesting more people be trained on exorcism because there's so many possessions.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I think there's correlation, but anyways, this next story is from cryptozoologynews.com, and this is a red Bigfoot spotted in Illinois is the title of this, which is awesome. I love Bigfoot. It's from Jonesboro, Illinois. It says a man in Union County claims he saw a red-haired Bigfoot. The anonymous man says he was at his house located by the Shawnee National Forest when the event took place. My pit bull was barking. I went to check on him with a flashlight, and the creature was standing there by the fence. He told Stan Courtney, BFRO field investigator, about the December 2015 encounter. The man reports that the purported creature, which was about 20 yards away, began staring at him and the dog. Then he disappeared into the woods. The eyewitness described the biped as 6 feet tall and exhibiting red hair covering its muscular body. It looked like a football player, he said. Its face, he added, was hairless and leathery, showing a flat pub nose and thick lips. So Jonesboro is located in southern Illinois, has population 1,900. That's pretty cool. And it's funny, you know, most of these, there's tons of sightings, it seems, you know, close to national forests or even some state parks. Like, you know, was it Salt Fork up in Ohio that has a lot of sightings and encounters. So, I'd like to live, well, I say I'd like to live next to a national forest, but probably after I've seen one, I wouldn't want to live there no more.
No thanks.
And in fact, if you haven't listened to, I think Sasquatch Chronicles, West put out a episode today, instead of, you know, normally it drops on Sunday, he put one out today, and he interviews a guy who had a number of things happen, and it was from South Carolina. I was stoked when I heard that. I couldn't believe it. And it's an area we've been to quite a few times. We actually camped up there a couple times. I mean, we camped very close to there because we were just across the border in North Carolina, just above Caesar's Head.
Yep.
And this all happened up around Table Rock, Pumpkin Town, that area. So if you haven't got the latest Sasquatch Chronicles, should listen to it. There's definitely, the guy was pretty shook up about what all he encountered. So, anyways, I guess we'll take a quick break and we'll be back to talk about some other stuff.
Tell us a story, Ranger Chet.
Oh, okay. I could tell you about the time I locked eyes with Sasquatch, or about my brush with the elusive Chupacabra. Then there was that encounter with the Mothman.
Yeah, tell us about the Mothman.
Of course, I once saw a lake monster and a sea monster on the same day.
Wow!
That's not even taking all the ghosts, aliens, and UFOs into account.
You've seen all that as a park ranger?
No, son. Those are the creatures I've encountered in my cryptid crate.
What's a cryptid crate?
Cryptid Crate is a monthly subscription box that arrives on your doorstep each and every month. It's filled with various cryptozoology and paranormal themed items such as t-shirts, hats, art, media, and other collectibles.
I want a cryptid crate. Yeah, I want one too.
You can get yours by visiting www.cryptidcrate.com. Sign up is quick and easy, and shipping is always free. I can't wait to get my cryptid crate, but for now, how about that story?
All right, we're back, and tonight we're going to talk about kind of something that could potentially correlate with what we talked about last weekend with the Star Children, or some people say that. We're going to talk about black-eyed kids, or BEKs, as they're referred to. I guess I first heard about black-eyed kids. I think it was on actually Monsters Among Us podcast, and man, it just creeps me out. No, I take that back. I saw it on I'm not sure what it was. It was a show on I don't know, A&E or Discovery or History or something. It was a like a Men in Black kind of show, and I always thought, wow, that's pretty creepy, but I didn't realize how widespread these encounters are. And basically, it's kind of like Slender Man. It was a folktale phenomena that it sounds creepy and far fetched, but that's unless you are the victim of the encounter. And most of these encounters, black-eyed kids, the victim is left pretty traumatized and completely unnerved by the experience. And once again, our chihuahuas just can't get settled. So,
Queso.
And, a typical encounter with black-eyed kids, usually entails a knocking on the door. In some cases, there's been reports of it them knocking on windows, and it's almost always very late hours or early morning hours. Typically, it happens when the person has settled for the evening, and when you wouldn't expect anyone to be visiting or knocking unless it was some kind of emergency. If a dog is present in the house or an apartment or wherever it is, they usually sense something before the knocking on the door starts. They typically react in one of two ways. They either cower or climb under something, furniture, bed, couch, something like that, or they do the opposite and they go towards wherever the knocking's coming from or is going to come from, and they begin growling or barking, becoming very agitated, hair standing up on end and stuff like that. In most cases, there are two black-eyed kids present when the door is open, if it's open. The genders vary. It could be two boys. I think most of them are two boys, or a boy and a girl that are present, and they usually have an older kid and a smaller kid. So it's usually either two about the same age, or like a 12 to 13-year-old and a 7 to 8-year-old range. Could be older. I mean, I've heard where it was like older teenagers, like 15, 16, they thought. But in about every case, they're wearing hoodies, and they have their hoods up and are partially concealing their faces. And usually, they're dressed pretty normally for their, what you would expect a kid of that supposed age to be dressed as. The skin that is seen is usually described as being very light and pale, very unnatural looking, not not like what you'd expect from a typical child. It's out, being out, going to school, play, and stuff like that. They seem to be very careful not to show their eyes until later in the encounter, after they've engaged you, and in all, almost all cases, the kids are very stern and asking to come into your home. So they won't come in and say, "Can we please use your phone?" Or they're like, "We need to come in and use your phone. Our mom is worried about us, and just let us in. And it's like they're very determined just to get into your home, to get, access to where you are. And, most frequently the excuse that they have is, like I said, they want to call their mom or they need to call their mom. In a few cases, there's been a request that, one of them needed to use the restroom. But I think in about every single encounter, the person confronted with the black-eyed kids is very unnerved and unsettled by the kids. And this is prior to them even, talking to them. They just get this uneasy, unnerved feeling. And a large number of the cases of the black-eyed kids show up when the weather outside is not optimal, for a child to be out roaming around either. It's storming or it's freezing or both. And it seems that this is part of their play. They're playing on your heartstrings, trying to take advantage of a person's natural tendency to help a child or children when they're out late or in bad weather. Obviously your natural instinct is to be concerned. And I think this is just a deceptive part of it. There's something ominous and malevolent about these encounters, obviously. So, they're exploiting you at this point, and that just points to them being very diabolical and an intelligent entity, to me at least. And not something you can trust, obviously. They'll eventually look up, and that is when the victim gets their first sight of completely black eyes. There's no white to the eye. It's just all black. Like some people say, it's almost like a liquid. And this is usually the point where the deal is sealed for the victim, and they start thinking of backing away, closing the door, and in a lot of cases, the kids appear to have the ability to, read what the person's thinking, because they'll say, "Don't close the door. We're not going to harm you. We need help. Just let us in. Just let us in. Don't back away. Just let us in."
That almost reminds me of I remember the TV show we were watching, but it was talking about how there's a theory that they were old spirits that were that came out one night a year and were hungry and wanted to go into people's homes, but they needed to be invited, almost like vampires.
Right.
Like they say they can't just enter your home; you have to invite them or just give them express permission to enter your home, and that they don't. Because I feel like if it was some malevolent entity, they'd just enter your home. Like they wouldn't need.
They gotta have some permission somehow.
They wouldn't need can we come in? They'd just go in, force entry, or just, if they're a higher being, they may not even need entry. They can just do whatever they want.
Right.
Why do they need permission to enter?
Yeah, I don't understand that, what the deal is there, but so obviously they appear to have some kind of ability to read minds. They usually get more forward when you start thinking or acting like you're going to back away. And they get more stern and adamant that they need to be in your house or get into your house. And then in some situations, they've tried to ease the victim, like I said, by saying, don't worry, don't get carried away for nothing. We're not up to no good. We're not, they're not like that talkative. They're very monotone, I think, and not as expressive. They're just like, don't be worried. We're not going to hurt you.
Yeah, and that almost the two elements of it is, one, I think they could be very like old spirit human or old spirit, maybe demon asking to enter the house, trying to be, just not barging in. But the other, I feel like it could be alien or of some inhuman, like completely inhuman origin, because it almost seems like they can't, human nature is not like recreatable. It's something that humans have, and that's why AIs are always going to seem robotic, because you can't give an AI human nature. That's just,
Right.
all the behavioral traits, how they move, how we speak, how we think, how we talk. It's all one big ball of how we were raised and just being human and having the actual, brain of being human. But trying to imitate that, seems like, there's an alien, like a puppet type thing. Like, don't worry, we're not going to harm you. Please let us enter your house,
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, it does. I mean, there's something just so inherently creepy and unnatural about this. I don't know. But usually after a person closes the door and they lock things up and get away, they'll stay out there, and they'll keep saying, let us in. Can we use a phone or something like that? And they'll hang around for a bit, but they'll eventually walk away. And sometimes there's been reports they'll walk down the street slowly, and in some cases they'll just be gone. They'll just they look and they're out there, and then look back in a few minutes and they're just gone, like they don't know where they went. And usually the person that encounters them or has this run-in, they have lasting effects. They're really creeped out and unnerved by it, and just have uneasiness, and just gets them to the core. So that's kind of the anatomy of an encounter for the most part. But I thought what we do is just go through some of the reports instead of rewriting some of this. I figured I would just read some of the reports I've read online, and they're just every one of them is a little different, but they're just
Very
freaking
similar,
just crazy.
And that ties back to the traits I said. I don't know if it was last episode, but I think it may have been the episode before that, talking about how humans are kind of born with an instinctual fear of certain traits. You know, being like really long and lanky and really, really elongated, skinny teeth or fangs. That's why a lot of people have a fear of snakes, not necessarily because it's scaly, but because it has long fangs. But that, I feel like eyes are one of the most important things when talking to humans. People are raised, look someone in the eyes when you're talking to them.
Well, and then you got a child or a small being,
and it almost like having the black eyes dehumanizes it.
Right.
It makes it seem like more of a human body rather than actually a human that's talking and interacting with you.
Well, you talk about that even with something like Sasquatch sightings, like the past couple I've heard, and ones I've heard for years, different ones I've heard. Most people that witness these things and see them in action, they are freaked out by their movements because they claim to be so unnatural in their movements and quick. So, that goes, not to say that I believe it's a flesh and blood animal, just from people's encounters, but, that's what, besides the sheer size of these things, that creeps people out too, is just the movement of them.
Yeah.
Because it's not something we're used to. It's not something you're not used to seeing a big animal like that move so quickly and almost gracefully. I mean, you see like a cow or something, they just take their time, they're walking across the field, pooping and chewing and doing whatever while they're walking, they don't care. But you see an animal that
it's almost disturbing.
7-8 feet tall and it weighs 1,000 pounds or 800 pounds and it's moving like a ninja.
Yeah,
that freaks you out.
It's really disturbing when humans see animals move with purpose, not necessarily, not like they're going to hunt, but if they just see something, because animals don't just run for nothing. They run for food or for mates.
There's a purpose
or for fighting
behind it.
But if they're just running or moving quickly for no apparent reason, they've the human, you think they know something's going on far away that I don't know is going on, and they're just a higher, either of a higher brain function or have better sensory organs, or there's something that it knows, it's got ESP or something that it's moving with a purpose, but you don't know why. There's
Right.
no clear why it's moving like that.
Yes, it all comes back basically to the unknown. Your mind is not used to seeing something like this, and that's the biggest part in your human brain that can't comprehend it. So the first one I wanted to talk about here is actually from theweekandweird.com. It's the article in here, and this kind of goes back to people saying they're unnerved. But what I did mention too, in a lot of cases, people that do have interactions with the BEKs, mainly the ones that they get close to them or let them in, in a lot of cases, these people have had some kind of medical issues very soon afterwards or within months. And this one says, I let the black-eyed children inside my house. It says, let me start by saying that I know how hard this all will be to believe, but now that things have taken a turn for the worse, I started looking for stories similar to mine and found this website, Week and Weird. And that's the Newkirk's website, I believe. Yeah, Newkirk's. I feel like I should share this story with someone, and your website seems like the right place. I made the mistake of letting the black-eyed kids inside, and now I'm worried that I might die because of it. I hope this will be a warning to everyone who is ever in the position to make the same mistake that I did. I live just outside of a rural town in Vermont. It's a tight-knit community where everyone knows one another and people don't lock their doors at night. There has never been any need to. A little over a year ago, I woke up because I heard a loud banging on the front door. At the time, my husband and I lived in a small home on a dirt road just off the rural route into town. It was the middle of a snowstorm, and the nearby hills get very slippery in the snow, so I thought that someone might have been in an accident and broke down. It's happened before. When I looked out the window, I could see that out motion spotlight was on. I could see that there were footprints in the snow that had come from the road and into our driveway, but there was no car anywhere. The snow was still covering the road, and no one had driven on it for at least a couple hours. Our front door was obscured from the window, but I could see that someone was standing there. I wasn't sure what to think, so I woke my husband up just to feel safer. While I was telling him what was going on, the banging on the door started again, and my husband went to answer it while I stood in the hallway. When he opened the door, there were two children standing in the snow looking toward the ground. There was a boy and a girl, could not have been more than 8 years old. They were dressed strangely and had odd haircuts. The girl's hair was very long and straight, and the boy had a dated haircut that looked almost like a bowl cut. They weren't dressed for winter, and my first thought was that they must have been Mennonite children, but as far as I know, there was never a large Mennonite community near us, or community Mennonites near us. Thinking back on it, I know that my normal reaction to seeing children in a snowstorm would have been to rush them inside and bundle them up with some blankets and hot cocoa. But that's not how this felt. The children were very unnerving. They would not make eye contact, and when my husband asked them if everything was okay, they asked if they could come in. My husband looked at me like, what do I do? And I asked the kids where their parents were. They'll be here soon, is all they said. It was around 2 o'clock in the morning at this point, so the only reasonable thought in my head was that there must have been an accident or the kids got lost. As much as my instincts told me not to bring them inside, I did it anyway. I went into the kitchen to make them some hot cocoa while my husband took them into the living room. While I was fixing the kettle, I could hear my husband talking to the kids. He was asking them if they were okay, where they came from, how far they walked, if their parents' car was broken down, things like that. But they always answered, "Our parents will be here soon." They spoke in a sing-songy voice. They weren't afraid to be in a stranger's home at all. I started to notice that our cats, we had 4, were all hiding except Pigeon, who was in the kitchen with me. Normally, our cats are very curious and friendly, and we have to be careful that they don't run out the door when we leave. This time, none of them tried to see who was here, which I thought was very strange. All of the hair on Pigeon's neck was standing up, and his tail was puffed up while he looked into the living room. When I bent down to pet him and see what was wrong with him, he hissed and started growling, and backed up until he had hid himself under the kitchen island. I have never seen him do that before. When I walked back into the living room, the kids were sitting on the couch as still as can be, but my husband was holding his head in his hands. I asked him what was wrong, and he just said that he felt very dizzy all of a sudden, but that he was fine. I turned back to the children to give them their cocoa, but when they looked at me, I gasped. It took everything inside of me not to drop the mugs and run away. When they looked at me, their eyes were completely black. They had no whites, just giant black pupils. When they saw that I was scared, they stood up and asked if they could use the bathroom. I tried to be composed as I could be and showed them down the hall. They went into the bathroom together, and I hurried back to my husband to ask him if he had seen their eyes. He had seen them too and said that it looked like his brother's badly bruised eyes after a car accident. We were in the middle of talking about whose children they could be when my husband's nose started to bleed. He'd never had nosebleeds as long as I had known him. I just knew inside myself that it had something to do with the kids in the bathroom, and I started crying while I ran to get my husband some tissue. That's when the power went out. I heard my husband yell my name from the living room, and as I started to walk back through the hallway, I stopped dead in my tracks. The 2 children were standing at the end of the hallway. They weren't moving, and I have never been so scared in my whole life. They just stood there in the dark. After what felt like forever, the boy said, "Our parents are here," and they walked to the door, opened it, and walked out, leaving it wide open. My husband jumped up to go close it and almost fell over. We looked out the window and saw 2 men standing by a black car idling at the end of our driveway. The men looked like they were wearing black colored suits and were very tall, at least 6 feet. When my husband waved at them, they just stared at us, got into the car, and drove off. Our power came on about a half an hour later, but nothing was the same after that. Over the next few months, 3 of our cats went missing. We can only assume that they ran away somewhere and never came back, but the worst thing was coming home to find Pigeon in a puddle of blood on the living room floor. He looked like he had been vomiting blood. The vet told us that he had some kind of hemorrhage. After my husband's nosebleed became a regular occurrence, we went to see the doctor. He didn't know what to make of it other than dry nasal passages, but my husband was diagnosed with an aggressive skin cancer. When the doctor asked if he used tanning beds, we both thought he was joking, but apparently this kind of melanoma is linked to overuse of indoor tanning. The doctors think he will recover, but don't understand how it got so bad so quickly. My husband has never worked an outdoor job and spends relatively little time in the sun. Since we let the BKs inside our home, I've also suffered from regular dizzy spells, nosebleeds on a regular basis. I've had other issues which I won't mention here, but trust me when I say that I am suddenly in the worst condition of my life and no one can do anything about it. I know that all of this is because I let the BKs, or black-eyed children, into my house. We've told everyone we could about the strange kids that showed up that night, but no one else saw them, and some laugh at how scared we were at the Mennonite kids, quote unquote. But we know what we saw. I wish my husband had never opened the door. Feel free to okay. So this one, I actually read this one a while back, and wow, that, I don't know, man, that is super creeps me out. Ugh, that is crazy. Wow, I had something in my head there I was going to talk about. I'm like, oh, because their parents would be there, and then all of a sudden the men in black show up. That's what it sounds like, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's what I thought of. I was thinking the first thing I thought of was some like crazy experiment where they were taking like mind controlling kids or something, and they had the kids go into somebody's house and ask them if they could like use the phone to call the men in black or whatever, to get them to come find them, and then they picked them up or they did a power outage, so maybe they couldn't see who the men in black were or whatnot. So
crazy. I thought I would read this one too. This one's from ranker.com, and it is probably one of the, I think it says it right here. It's one of the earliest recorded sightings of black-eyed children. Was back in 1950. A 16-year-old named Harold was strolling up the street to his Virginia home when he noticed a boy leaning on a nearby fence. Harold was a bit startled. He paused and said hello, but received no response. He turned to leave. Then the mysterious boy finally spoke. "I want to go to your house. You're going to walk me up to your house." That was when Harold noticed the boy's eyes. They were pitch black. All his instincts screamed run, yet he just stood there. Then, as if reading Harold's mind, the boy said, "Now, don't you run away from me. You're going to walk me to your house." That was enough to spring Harold into action. He booked it out of there. He claimed he heard the devil child let out a scream of a bobcat, but he wasn't willing to turn around to be sure. The account goes on to reveal Harold's parents actually believed his tale, and his father went out with his gun in hand looking for what they believed was a devil. The black-eyed child was gone, but Harold's mother still took him to the local priest to be sure the son would remain safe. You know, just thinking about that last one, I mean, obviously those people were impacted somehow. So there's something more than just
the black-eyed children showing up and asking to come in.
Yeah, I mean, you got the power going out. You got the men in black showing up. You got these people winding up with skin cancer when he's never been in the sun that much.
Yeah.
Bleeding nose.
It almost reminds me.
The cat's freaking out.
Almost reminds me of like an overexposure to certain type of
radiation,
intensive rays. Yeah, either gamma or X-ray or whatnot.
Well, you know, there's been situations where people who have encountered UFOs or been in close proximity to supposed UFOs have wound up with, you know, cancer and all kinds of different medical conditions.
Yeah.
So that's crazy. All right, this next one is like, I think this is the one. This is actually, I believe this is the one that I saw. They did like a reenactment of this on the show when the first time I ever heard about the black-eyed children. It says journalist Brian Bethel of Abilene, Texas, is credited with being the first person to post an online account of the black-eyed children phenomena. It all began back in 1996. Bethel was sitting in his car writing out a check he intended to drop off at a nearby internet provider's office. He was startled by the sound of knocking on his window and looked up to see two kids in hoodies. He couldn't figure out why, but a jolt of fear ran through him. They were just kids, but something was wrong with them. He just couldn't figure out what. He cracked his window just enough to talk to them. The oldest of the two boys asked for a ride to their mother's house. He claimed they were going to see a movie, forgot their money, and needed a ride so they could make it back to the movie in time. The movie theater was close enough that Bethel could read the marquee, and he asked the boys what they were going to see. Mortal Kombat was his reply. Brian knew that the movie had already started an hour ago. Also, there was just something wrong with the pair. The way they spoke wasn't natural. They didn't sound as young as they looked. "Just let us in, and we'll be gone before you know it. We'll go to our mother's house." Everything the older boy said sent shivers down Bethel's spine, but then he saw it. The pitch black eyes, lacking any real substance or soul. Bethel didn't even try to hide his horror. "Come on, mister, we won't hurt you. You have to let us in. We don't have a gun." The more he spoke, the more Bethel was sure he had to get out of there. He threw his car in reverse, the boy still yelling to be let in, and he sped off. He gave one quick glance behind him, but saw nothing. The black-eyed boy simply vanished before he even made it out of the parking lot. So there you go. You got another example of, they were gone. They were there and then they're gone. Oh man. Let me see. I had another one here. I gotta find it. Yeah, this one here. Now this one I don't know if I read this one. I'll just read it, but I wasn't sure if it was. It almost seems like a story somebody wrote, but yeah, I mean, who would make up this stuff? It's crazy. So John Northwood was heading to his car on the third floor of a parking garage when one of the guys from the conference he had just attended, named Doug, asked him to drive him around the block a few times. He said there were some freaky looking kids hanging around his car and was hoping to kill some time while waiting for them to wander off. So John let Doug in and they started cruising. When they neared his car, John saw the group Doug was talking about and agreed they were creepy. 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl, all gothed out. The girl looked about 15 and the boys were around 14 and 10. They were intense, but John described it as if he began itching behind his eyes and really needed to look at them. He stopped driving. The kids maneuvered around his car, and the youngest one said, "It's scary out there all alone, and we just wanted a ride home." Apparently, Doug had interacted with the younger one earlier and had agreed to drive him home, but the 2 older ones creeped him out, and he changed his mind. So John felt as if his heart was going to erupt from his throat as adrenaline raced through him. Doug said he was getting out of the car. As soon as he reached for the handle, it was like the children got older somehow, and he saw their eyes were solid black. No pupil, no iris, nothing, just black. John threw the car into reverse and squealed the car backwards about 60 feet. The kids began to pursue them. John took the car around the lot's corners, going around 30 miles an hour. He felt that he would die if he let those kids in the car. He sped down 3 floors only to find the oldest boy was already at the bottom of the garage when they came out. Yeah. They sped past him out the garage, and when John glanced in his rear view, the boy was gone, and so was that menacing feeling that had been building inside him since making contact with those kids. They waited 10 minutes before going back, and Doug was able to get in his car and head home. The black-eyed children were nowhere in sight. Upon leaving the garage for the second time that night, the menacing feeling returned. John was behind Doug's car, watching helplessly at it as it misjudged the time it would take to get through the intersection on a yellow light. Doug was struck by a truck and died instantly. John saw the 3 black-eyed children still lurking about 2 blocks away.
I don't know, man. That's that almost they describe the itching in behind their eyes almost makes you like think that they have some partial like not mind control, but they have some telepathic ability to make you like want to look at them.
Right?
It's almost like someone with Tourette's, like they have to do it or else it bothers them really bad, like that. Like if you,
right.
Like say, like I know you may not have had this experience, but my grandma's talked about being in the redwood forest when they were on vacation, and they heard some cougar or not cougar, probably a mountain lion or something not roaring, but making noises, very loud.
Yeah, like a guttural growl.
Vocalizations in the woods. And almost that, it's there, but you don't want to look at it just out of fear, because you're afraid of what you're going to see, even though it may not be what you're thinking it is, but just in case it is, you don't want to look at it. That's almost, what it reminds me of, like, don't look at it, don't look at it, don't look at it,
Right.
Like, don't turn around, don't look down, stuff like that,
Yeah. It's like you can't help yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna do one more here, and then we're probably gonna call it a wrap tonight. We might have to come back around to this in a future episode, but this one says this one caught me because it says the children erased a man's memory. So it says at 6'7" and 260 pounds, the United States Marine was his own looming and intimidating force of nature, but that didn't stop a black-eyed kid from testing him. He was in the barracks of the Texas base where he lived and settling in for the night when he heard a sharp knock on the door. Assuming it was the neighbor, the Marine finally made his way to the door. Standing outside was a boy around 17 years old. The Marine asked him what was up, and almost hungrily, the boy asked him to be let in to use the phone. Nothing but sleep and peace on his mind, the Marine said no and directed him to the service building across the parking lot and closed the door. He knocked again. Irritated, the Marine went to the window, intending to yell at him. But just looking at the thin, gaunt kid gave him the creeps. That's when he noticed the eyes. They were black as coal. Once again, the child asked to be let in with a creepy, predatory smile. Still determined to assert his authority, the Marine ignored his fear. I'm going to tell you one more time before I kick your ass to get lost. He turned momentarily to grab his phone, and by the time he turned around, the creature in the form of a child was gone. He couldn't shake the feeling that he'd seen him before, that all of this was familiar. Then it hit him. He had watched his brother have a similar interaction once. 2 years earlier, while still in high school and living in Pennsylvania, he worked the night shift at a gas station. One night, while having a smoke out front with his brother, they saw some guy walking across 4 lanes towards them. His brother asked him if he needed anything, and it was the same request. He wanted to use a phone. The brother said the phone was back by the register and no one was allowed to use it. The brothers went inside, but the strange kid didn't take no for an answer. He stood in front of the shop, just knocking until his brother chased him off with a bat. Then when he came back, he said the kid was pale and had black eyes. It was the same kid. To some, the fact that the Marine didn't recognize the black-eyed kid immediately implies these beings might be able to scramble people's minds or cloak their memories, at least temporarily, just like they cloak their appearance.
I don't know.
That's
some crazy stuff.
I mean, I don't know. It could just be, the guy just didn't remember it,
Yeah.
It didn't, but I don't, it probably would have been maybe different if the initial time, the first time when the brother encountered it, if the Marine had seen it also, maybe he wouldn't have, forgot it, but I think it would have a lot more impact on you if you witnessed it yourself, So, that's some, the black-eyed kids. I mean, there's tons and tons of encounters out there, and it's like anything. It's like Bigfoot or ghost stories, whatever. You have to just kind of read it yourself, and obviously, to the people, if they're telling the truth, they really saw something, if they're not just making up stories. But it goes right along with Bigfoot. I can't believe that this many people would be making something up that was so similar, I guess, maybe there's a possibility, but it's creepy nonetheless. I mean, there's something sinister feeling about it, and it's definitely a huge, huge creep factor, so. But anyways, do you have anything else to add, buddy, before we rock out of here?
Nope. I think he covered it.
You always say that. I just touched the surface. Just giving everybody a little lick of the water. Yeah. They have to find their own source to drink. So, anyways, we appreciate you guys listening once again, and putting up with our nonsense and our Chihuahua, who's now sleeping. After we get going in the show, wrapping it up, he's ready to sleep. Of course, we banished him from the kingdom, so he's out there looking at us. through the glass. Anyways, we appreciate you guys listening. Thanks for the support. We've had quite a jump in our downloads just in the past week. We have, I think we had a couple people join the Facebook group, so that's good. So come look us up. If you can't find it, that you'll probably find the Unexplained Reality page before you'll find the group. For some reason, I can't figure that out, why it's so hard to find. But you can come to the page and just ask for it, and I'll send you the link to it. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're on YouTube. The shows go to YouTube automatically. And if you're on iTunes, Stitcher, or your podcatcher that you're listening on has the ability to rate and review, please do that. It just helps us out. It helps the show become more visible. And I think that's all I've got. If you haven't listened to the Sasquatch Chronicles that came out today or the one from this past weekend, you can listen to both of them. They're great. Some really crazy Sasquatch encounters. Also, the expanded perspectives that I listened to. I guess that was this week's. Or maybe it might have been last week, so I'm a little behind on podcast listening. It was pretty great too. So anyways, I think that's it. As usual, we'd like to show the love to podcasts that we like to listen to. Sasquatch Chronicles, of course. Mysterious Universe.
Somewhere in the Skies.
Yeah.
Into the Fray Radio.
OK Talk.
Monsters Among Us.
The Grayling Report. The Confessionals. What else? Cryptid Factor is a fun one. Secret Trans Podcast.
Check out Cryptid Crate.
Yep, check out Cryptid Crate. CryptidCrate.com. You'll hear the commercials on here. Go check them out if you like to get cool cryptid stuff sent right to your house every month. T-shirts, books, stickers, stuff like that. You never know what you're going to get. It's like getting Christmas every month.
Mm-hmm. It's the best.
It's like Sasquatch is there packing the packages up himself and sending them out.
He gives a little kiss, sends it with love.
Yes, it's got a little stamp on it. It's a little Sasquatch foot. Not literal. I don't know if it does or not. I'm just saying. It could.
Possible.
Be cool. Other than that, we thank Ricky Young for letting us use his music. He's a local musician. Well, he's from here. He's not local anymore. He's in Nashville. But RickyYoung.com. Go check out his music. Actually, I need to start using some of his other albums. I'm just using like one right now. I'm beating the crap out of that. So anyways, hope everybody has a good week. And one last plug, if you have an experience or an encounter, we'd love to hear them. Shoot us up on unexplained.reality@yahoo.com. Shoot us an email, and we can get together and talk about it. Either read it on the air or have you on. And I think that's a wrap. So everybody have a good week. And Harrison, you done? You good? He's tired. You ready to go to bed?
Extremely.
Yeah, me too. All right. See you, everybody. See you in a week. Bye.
Bye.
16 years old is where I like to go when I'm feeling like I'm feeling right now. When time was moving slow and this old road to hold wasn't quite so long and loud. Sometimes I just need a little taste of the past, back when my only worry was running out of gas. I dream about the hours underneath that water tower, way before I had a care in the world. On the hood of Tommy's old Chevette, a six-pack and some cigarettes, and we lied about how far we'd get with girls. The drive-ins are now a parking lot, and the Walmart took our favorite spot. But I love looking back across the years. cut the lock and climbed up to the top. Scared the whole town half to death when he saw how far it was from up there to the ground. The fire department had to come and help him down. I dream about the hours underneath that water tower, way before I had a care in the world. On the hood of Tommy's old Chevette, a six-pack and some cigarettes, and we lie about how far we get with girls. The drive-in's now a parking lot, and the Walmart took our favorite spot. But I love looking back across the years, and my mind is all still crystal clear. I can almost see that water tower from here. Can't slow down time or stop the winds of change, but I can close my eyes and simply drift away and dream about the hours underneath that water tower, way before I had a care in the world. On the hood of Tommy's old Chevette, a six-pack and some cigarettes, and we lie about how far we get with girls.